Election look. Because you know what? It is so humid here, it has to look better today. JB, this is miserable.
I didn't know. I don't usually leave Texas in the summer. And so now going and spending 9 days in Aspen, that it's actually cruel when you come back.
Yeah, it was a rough re-entry. But here we are. We're in Austin, Texas. We're at the Forward Podcast Studio where I normally, or most of the time, sit here and record my regular podcast. So for those of you who have, we've never done one of those on Facebook Live, but you've seen pictures, you've seen a lot of this stuff. It might be cool to kind of just give you a little setting or set the scene, so to speak, of where we are. You know, a couple shelves here, just with trinkets and stuff that people have given me over the years. My sheriff's hat up here, top right, since I am a sworn-in deputy sheriff in Pitkin County. I don't know what that's from. Me and my lady. That was actually the day that I got sworn in. A license plate. This is a cool thing. They gave this to the winner of the Tour de France in 2005. I don't know why, but it's different than all the other trophies. And nobody's come to pick it up yet. It's really weird. Check this. Winning my age group at the Leadville 100, 30 to 39. How about that, huh, JB? You don't know.
That's impressive.
And to the family with the cuss jar, the F-bomb. Fans of the podcast, fans of the Forward know Moko. Moko makes an appearance in most of the podcasts. He actually travels a lot of the time. My beautiful family, that was our Christmas card. The greatest of all time, Eddie Merckx. A Randy Lewis wine box. A super hard Star Wars toy puzzle at the top left. You've never been able to complete it. You can try later, JP. A license plate from California my friend Rob sent me.
I like that it's the old school Cali black plate too.
Yeah, I think they're redoing those again.
Yeah.
And then a picture of a group of us at Steve Head's funeral, which was a very sad day, but great to see some old friends. The paddle from what was that? The Super Frog. Super Frog triathlon, football, Ed Ruscha book, a little dude that was made in Africa when we were down there in South Africa years ago. A nod to the late great Hunter S. Thompson. Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Award. Now we're talking. How you like that, kids with the cuss jar?
Did you get slimed?
Yes.
So yes, we got slimed, and I took my daughters, and they bought these pretty dresses, and Grace got slimed so bad, and she cried. She'll kill me for saying this, but she cried for days. It was
about getting slimed?
Yeah, and you couldn't get it out.
I think that'd be a kid's dream.
I know. Here we are. Should we do this, JB? Should we? You know, one other thing. Dave Bolch, who's running the gimbal there, pointed out that my pen today matches my readers, and that's not by design. But it happened.
Mic pointing right at you.
You want this right here?
Yeah, right.
All right, no headphones today.
Right at your. Yeah.
Right like that?
Yeah.
Wow. Liz Scroots is here too. Dave, give Liz a little love. Look at Liz. Get in there, Lizzie. You're always making us get in front of cameras. All right.
All right, ready to do this?
I'm ready to do it. It's 11 o'clock. I can go anytime?
Anytime you're ready.
What am I saying? Just kidding.
It's your show.
Welcome back to the Stages Podcast. I'm Lance Armstrong with my friend Jeffrey Benedict Hager, JB Hager. We just learned yesterday that's what JB stands for. I've known JB for 20 plus years. I never asked him.
No one ever asks.
And I'm kind of glad I didn't ask for a long time. That was a lot to live with.
And it doesn't just roll off the tongue well, does it?
No. Talking about, and it's funny when you talk about bike races in France and you try to say the names. I mean, we get actually some emails about mispronouncing people's names.
Sure.
But the start of today's stage is in Périgueux. I can't even pronounce it. And finished down in Bergerac, 178 kilometers. These days, with all due respect to these boys, I mean, they're not that exciting. Of course, we had the mandatory and typical two-man breakaway that didn't get a whole lot of time, and then the sprinters teams moved to control the race, which is what typically happens. But I think to me, before we get into the details, the takeaway for me was if Andre Greipel was going to win a bike race or win a stage in the Tour de France, and today was the day, his team was perfectly positioned, he had multiple riders in front of him, it looked like he had it, and then he didn't. And so if I'm Andre Greipel, I go home and compare and contrast to Marcel Kittel, another German, that really didn't have a team today, didn't have a train, and it was very unorganized. And I saw him, 10 or 15 back, and I thought, well, maybe he's going to take the day off. And then out of nowhere, this guy just sort of says, okay, I'm going to start going now. Mm-hmm. And when I remarked the other day that he won what seemed like twice the speed of the others, today was even more dramatic, more dynamic. So 4 stage wins for him.
Are we going to get that power meter reading again? Who sent you that last time?
Greg Henderson sent us the power meter from the sprint the other day, where Greipel was second. But his power meter today would not say much. I mean, because he basically sat up in the sprint, and I don't know if he just got caught out or just had a bad day, but he certainly had the team to win today, and it was a technical finish. Two turns within the last, 2 left turns within the last kilometer.
Forgive me for kind of kicking this off with a pretty naive question. But you kind of apologetically said it wasn't a very exciting day. But that's when it's flat and there's no drama. That's a good thing and a bad thing. But
that's great. Liz is on her Instagram account over here. Liz. This is not amateur hour.
I'm sorry. Facebook Live. Sorry.
So
Jamie, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. So on those days like that, where it is just a flat day, no drama, and then we're all waiting for the sprint. It's a sprinter's day. Why does it still need to be a 5-hour plus day on the bike?
That's a good question. I mean, it's so traditional. Well, first of all, for the fan at home, sleep in. Don't get up early.
Yeah.
Unless your kid told you is in the race and he told you the night before that he's going to go on the break, well, then get up and watch him. But if you're just a fan sitting at Austin, Texas, just sleep in. Ride a little longer, do something.
Yeah, I would always kind of fast forward.
Yeah.
And then, you get to the last 20K, it gets pretty exciting.
Yeah. But you know what? I mean, this was a day of 178 kilometers, 110 or 12 miles. If you made this, your question is, why wouldn't the stage be 50 miles?
Right.
Which, I guess they could. It doesn't, they have to, the tour kind of has to get to that total distance.
Which is... It
would look different. It just wouldn't be as epic in nature if the distance overall was that much shorter. You're right. I mean, it would be, you'd probably have the same outcome. Mm-hmm. The race would be a lot more explosive if you had a 50-mile day versus a 112-mile day. You'll see we have a day coming up in the mountains that are in some hillier terrain, which is very short. Those days are completely explosive. This is a sport that's trying to find itself and trying to figure out what they do for content, what they do for to revitalize interest, and that's something that could be an idea. I don't know how I feel.
It's just that tradition of covering.
Yeah, I say let the boys ride the 178 kilometers and we sleep in.
You don't mind that?
Yeah, and I should have ridden longer.
You did get out on the bike today.
Got up at 5 o'clock. Had the coffee set. I was going to try to leave at 6, but it was still pitch black, so I waited a little bit and had my hour and 40 minutes or something. It's on Strava. You guys can find me on Strava.
I'm telling you, the man squeezed it in.
Well, I tell you one thing. It's the heat index. The newspaper today said the heat index is going to be 105, so I'm getting it over with. There's no way in hell I'm going out and exercising in 105. No. And I was having this conversation with Anna the other day, because even when we were in Boulder, it was warm. And I rode with the Morton brothers. I came back and I said, honey, I think I've just become a complete wuss. Like, I can't take the heat. And it just drives me crazy. I think I'm just getting to be just completely lame.
Did a hot day ever work as an advantage to you back in the day, being a Texan, training in heat?
It's so funny. But having grown up in hot temps, you would think that suits you. I struggled in the hot temperature, and I still, not to reiterate what I just said, but I run hot, right? Even if I'm out exercising or we're talking about some controversy in this race, I get heated up. And so I think that didn't help me when it came to hot days, and over time people started to figure that out. When it was going to be hot, they thought, this is a day where we know he struggles in the heat. Everybody struggles in the heat. I've talked about that, but I think I struggled more than most.
You think it would be the opposite?
Yeah, but I kept trying to tell myself that, but the reality is it wasn't.
Yesterday was the rest day, and they had to fly to another city. The buses had to drive like 600 kilometers. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of people working to keep this train moving.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to the point where they fly like F1, where they fly all the gear. They got to load it up and drive it.
Right? F1 style, wouldn't that be great?
But Kim, before we get there, I just want to read, because I love this so much. This is an email we got on the rest day. We got it, and it just came in from this dude, W. Wade. And he sends it to us. Subject: you've ruined my life.
Oh, yes.
I would like to personally thank the Stages team for ruining my life. My wife came into my man cave while I was watching the Stages rerun on YouTube. You guys were talking about the Cavendish crash, so now she's all into the tour and the broadcast. Now she has an opinion about everything. Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot.
That was his little private thing that he.
That was we get a lot of emails, but when that one got sent around, we were like, oh wow.
I've talked to many people who are taking an interest in it for the first time, just because of what you're sharing and explaining. Because oddly enough, no one's out there explaining it quite well.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're doing a good job. That's what we're trying to do, is make you understand. So some of it are rookie questions, from people like me, and some of it's pretty technical that I think even bike racers are like, I didn't know that.
Yep.
So yesterday, that rest day, there typically is a yellow jersey press conference.
Yep. Traditionally, the leader of the tour, the person in the yellow jersey, has a press conference. The other interesting tidbit too, which we can talk about as the race gets towards the end, but just so the average fan at home knows, this is the Tour de France finishes officially when they finish all the laps on the Champs-Élysées. But everybody sort of knows who's going to win the Tour after. But the final press conference is not after they finish in Paris. It is after they finish the time trial. So anything could happen the next day. So the leader, which is presumed to be the winner, although he still has to ride 100 miles the next day, gives a press conference the day before. Imagine if you went and did the press conference and then you had a freak, Champs-Élysées is raining on the cobbles of the Champs-Élysées, he slides out and breaks his collarbone, and what did they do with that press conference from the day before? But typically, to answer your question, every rest day the leader of the race gives a press conference. And I read this morning that Chris Froome decided to not give a press conference, and instead Team Sky issued quotes. I don't know how that was viewed in the press room, but I like that. Mm-hmm. I support that, and I support it. Obviously, I had a contentious relationship with a lot of the people in that press room, and I don't think he does. But if you have a rest day and you're doing all the things you're going to do, you're going to go ride, you're going to eat, you're going to have therapy, massage therapy, all of these things. It's just another thing, and it's kind of another thing that Chris Froome has to get up for, right? It's they're going to ask you questions that you just don't want to talk about, not to the extent that it was as edgy as my press conferences back in the day, but there's just going to be something. So for them to, they can control the narrative by just issuing the release or issuing the quotes. I supported it. I mean, I thought if it's truly a rest day, then rest. And
why make them work? Well, it also seems like if you're in the leader's jersey, you're in yellow, and you're doing your press conference. I mean, there's kind of there's no winning on that. If you are cocky about your position and your chances and opportunity or any of that, you look arrogant. If you are downplaying it all, you don't seem to have confidence, right? I mean, there's no right answer, and you're not going to divulge all your strategies.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they really looking for in that
Right.
press conference?
No, you don't need to get into strategy. Their strategy is pretty straightforward. They would ask. You know what they would ask? They'd go back and ask about Fabio Aru, who I get grief for apparently for not pronouncing it correctly, but they'd ask him about what he thought again of Aru attacking when he had his hand up. I don't blame him. I don't blame him for staying in bed and skipping it.
Yeah, we've talked about that. That's media behavior.
Yeah.
They're gonna latch onto anything that seems to have an inkling of controversy.
Yeah.
And to your buddies on that email, the women don't like the controversy. That's what roped her in.
I guess you're
so
right.
maybe with controversy they'll get more women watching. I don't know, just a theory.
Speaking of Chris Froome, JB, and I know we've had quite a few emails about this, but more than anything, as I walk around, and it's been really cool to obviously, if you're in a place like Boulder, there's a lot of cyclists and people are following the tour. They're listening to this podcast, and people come up to me and ask questions. But the one question that I get in person, forget the emails, that I get in person more than anything is, how do I think that I would compare? Just take myself and Chris Froome, U.S. Postal and Sky, and put them in the same race in the same year. How would they compare? And I understand the question. The answer is impossible, right?
Yeah. They've tried to do this in sports throughout the years.
And I'm going to get to
Okay.
the comparison of our generation versus previous generations. You cannot compare these generations. You can't compare them culturally. You can't compare them strategically, technically. The choices that were, it's just a very different generation. So I would never say to anybody, oh, we'd win hands down, or our team was much better, or I was a better rider. That's when I was racing, and even maybe a little bit before, this is a very typical question, right? So they would ask Eddie Merckx, as great as he was, his quote was, these current riders, this generation, they couldn't carry my suitcase. I mean, maybe that's right, but you can't say that. You don't know. We don't know, right? And so it's. I would never get in a position where, I guess you could break it down technically and look at speeds and times, but then comes the other layer of, well, wait a minute, the fuel was a little different back then. And so we can't compare. These guys they're at the top of their game. They're the best in this generation, and it's not for me to try to reinsert myself into a competition when it makes no sense. No disrespect to the people that come up to me and want to know.
Well, you've talked about the speeds they're turning, and you've mentioned the stiffness in bikes and wheels, and there's a lot of other things that give them faster speeds.
Of course, everything's changed.
So there's too many elements to too many variables to make a comparison. But that being said, if you put your postal team up against Sky, how would you do?
They wouldn't even carry our suitcases. I can't imagine saying that. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't.
No.
I know how hard the game is, and I can't. You can't. No disrespect to Eddie for saying that about later generations, but you can't say that. You don't know.
All right, let's try this piece of it. I'll just peel off one little part of it. Could you make a comparison tactically of
The two teams.
The two teams.
Of course.
Look
at you have what is now, obviously the strongest rider in the race with the strongest team. It's not that hard tactically to know what to do when your team is that strong. It's actually super easy, which sometimes equals boring. But it's not. This is not rocket science. This is you have the strength of the team that controls the race. On the flat days, you let the sprinters do their thing. You keep your guy out of trouble. You get to the mountains. You get to the front. You ride tempo. Hope nothing goes wrong.
And yet you say it's not rocket science, there's been some stir in the last few days over some tactics of teams working when they shouldn't, helping Froome, lining it out for him.
When we watched the telecast today, the broadcast, and there was again this discussion of what was Astana thinking on the run into Chambéry the other day, when you have the yellow jersey isolated and you are helping him. I said it. I'm like, what? And even as this was going on, and I mentioned the other day, George Hincapie texted me, what are these guys doing?
Right.
What? I still, and then Fuglsang, Jacob Fuglsang says, who was one of the two Astana riders, says, well, we weren't thinking about Chris Froome. Well, then what the fuck are we doing here? I mean, if you,
right.
You're not thinking about, so what are you thinking about? How it's going to be to get fifth?
Yeah, they resolved.
This would be cool.
They've resolved not to contend the leader. Almost is that what that says to you? It's like I'm racing for second or third.
Yeah,
at best.
I can't even think about it. I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, do not pull the yellow jersey like you're his teammate. Don't let him pull. Do a couple of fake pulls. Don't wear his ass out.
And another thing that came into
Who
play.
cares about Bardet up the front?
I know.
That's Chris Froome's responsibility.
And there were
trust me, he cares. You just seen if they just said, look, we're not riding, he would have sat on the front and rode. I guarantee it. He had no choice. Of course he would have, and he has the strength to do it. He looks. He's like, oh, I got 10K. Do I have the strength and the? Can I do a 10K little mini time trial here and recover from him? Yeah.
And he would have.
Of course he would have.
And they all could have sat on his wheels. Instead, they worked with him and actually let him pick up a little time bonus.
Yeah. It just gets. I can't talk about it anymore.
We have to have one thing per podcast that just gets you worked up.
Yeah.
Heated.
Yeah.
You just said you get hot. This is the thing. And that was 2 days ago.
Even made me say an F-bomb. That cost me $1. His poor kids. God.
There was a name you asked me to bring up.
Yes.
A lot of people are asking about up and coming. They want to know who to watch. Who are the young guys and the stories to follow? Now that people are getting back into it, at least a lot of the fan mail we're getting, it's people getting re-engaged and falling in love with the tour again. You mentioned bringing up George Bennett.
Yeah, so in any bike race, you always have the obvious stories. You have the favorites, the leader, the charming stars, but then there's always the sneaky person, and George Bennett is the sneaky one. I mean, here's a kid who won the Tour of California a couple of months ago, is sitting in 10th. By the way, we're talking about how great and strong and safe Chris Froome is. 10th place is less than 4 minutes behind. 4 minutes sounds like, I don't know what it sounds like to you people listening. It's not a lot of time. Anything can happen. But sneaking into 10th place is this young Kiwi, George Bennett. Please be Kiwi. If he's Australian.
Let's confirm.
Oh, I'll never. Just confirm.
They're already all over you. I think
he
just made peace with the Kiwis over this deal and the Aussies. Now you're gonna...
He's from New Zealand. Thank God. But this is a young kid who's in 10th place. Won the Tour of California. He coincidentally was on our development team I started many years ago. And if you see, when there was the selection the other day on Cat Mountain, Montechette, he was there. It wasn't. He looked good to me. And so if you're looking for, obviously guys like Chris Froome can't ride forever, but kids like Yates, Simon Yates, Adam Yates, George Bennett, oddly enough, 3 Anglos, they're going to be factors and potential tour winners in the future. And I'm proud that he was on our team a long time ago, and I'm proud to see that he's just snuck his way right into the top 10.
Okay. While we're talking about those young guys and those young names, that's why they do an under 23 category. Youngest rider.
I think it's under 25.
Under 25?
I think the white jersey. Yeah.
So, kind of explain this to people. Is a GC contender tend to be, that prime seems to be like 27 to 32-ish?
Yep.
That's the prime.
If you looked at the average, right? If you just took 100 and something years of this race and you looked at the average age of the winners, it would be in there. It would be late 22 is too young, 25 maybe too young, 35 is too old, so it's somewhere in there.
So even say 27 compared to most sports, you've been around a while.
Right.
And in cycling, obviously, you've been around a while.
They have been around.
But let me try to explain this question right. Is it because physically they're not developed enough? Tactically they're not developed enough? Have they not earned the right to be the GC, the leader of a team? Is it I mean, you just don't see people bursting onto the scene at 21 and...
Well, you saw Jan. It's all of those things, JB. But I think the most important one you hit on is that a 3-week race is obviously very hard. But for a young kid, it's just too long, too hard, too many days. It's happened. Jan Ulrich did it out of the blue, seemingly. Although he was an amazing amateur talent, and everybody knew that he was a great talent. Won the World Championships as an amateur, but it's not a young man's race. So you need, the traditional thinking is that you need and by the way, it doesn't have to be the Tour de France. You could send a young kid to the Vuelta or to the Giro. So just a young kid getting a 3-week tour under his belt makes a huge difference. And 2 of them, or it's even better in 3 of them. I mean, those miles accumulate when it comes time to peak at that right age, and then they also accumulate when you're like sliding out the back as well. But this is not a young man's race. Not that it can't be done.
There had to be many times over the years as, the different teams you participated in were developing, okay, look at next season, who do we bring on? And there had to be somewhere you go, they're not ready. They're not ready.
Yeah.
Right?
And as much as the white jersey is tricky, because just because a kid wins the white jersey doesn't mean that you can automatically go long that stock and say, well, in 2 years he's going to win the whole thing. He's going to win the yellow jersey. And the best example that I can think of is, and as much I love him so much, and he's a great friend, but T.J. Van Garderen had the white jersey, won the white jersey. I believe he did win. He won the white, and he hasn't been able to. And I think he would admit this. He just obviously hasn't won a yellow jersey. So sometimes does that sniff or whiff of yellow or overall victory come too soon? And what does that do to a young kid? What does that do to his view of this event? And so white jersey is no guarantee that you're going to be in yellow.
How much of it is mental being ready to be?
Well, it's like any sport. I mean, when I was, it's funny, when I was young, I thought everything about this sport is physical. You got to be physically strong, and that's the most important. But as I got older, I realized that the mental part is not more important than the physical part, but it's close. It's an equal split for me. What are we looking at here? Oh, these are the white jerseys. So this is a great stat. Thank you, Higgs. Wow. So Contador won the white jersey in 2007 and won the yellow jersey. TJ won the white jersey in 2012, Quintana 2013, Thibaut Pinot 2014, Quintana again in 2015. God, he's young. And then Adam Yates last year. Andy Schleck won 3 whites.
Wow.
So
it is a little bit indicative.
In 2005, Popovich won as my teammate. So it's Basso 2002. So, but it's not, a lot of things can go on. And so, what was I talking about just before that?
the mental side of it.
So the mental, as I got older and maybe a little wiser, not a lot wiser, as we can all agree, I realized that the mind is the thing that has. You could have the greatest engine, the greatest chassis, the greatest, most reliable. You never get hurt, you never get sick, all of that. But if the mind doesn't tell the body to go out every day, you get up and you look outside and it's 50 degrees and raining and you've got a 6-hour day. The body doesn't just start walking out the door. The mind has to say, okay, this is going to suck. Mm-hmm. Let's go. And so the mind gets you out there to prepare, and then in the race, the mind figures out how to win.
Or like you mentioned the other day on a previous podcast, which everyone should go back and listen to all of them. There's great stuff in there. You mentioned having your guys ride hard on a rest day, where most people probably just spin their legs out, right?
Yeah. Mentally, they didn't like that, and they didn't like it physically. You should go ask. We should ask those guys what they hated me for that.
Do you want to talk about tomorrow's technical finish first, and then field some questions? Let's do that.
So, again, if you look at tomorrow and what to expect, back up. Looking at today, if you don't pick, everybody listening now can just, I think we all pick the same person for tomorrow. I think the same thing happens. I think you get this 2 to 4 man breakaway that goes away. This peloton, as it has been this entire tour, doesn't give them much time. They give them a few minutes, and then they leave them there, and then they bring them back as happens. But this is another tricky look at the last 5 kilometers. You've got 3 roundabouts, a hard left, another roundabout, another left. So in the last K, you have a roundabout and sort of a soft left. Another technical, tricky finish. The interesting thing, which I want to read, and I never would have thought about this stuff, but he's almost become like our roving reporter, Greg Henderson, Coach Hendy, CoachHendy.com, as he says.
Yeah, checking in, giving us some insight.
Yeah, I love this insight, but because I think of this Kittle and Greipel and the favorites. And so he says in this DM to me, he says, so who is left to sprint? Christoph, Kittle, Greipel, Buhani. And the dangerous fact now is that every second string sprinter thinks he has a chance also. We're in for some scrappy sprints coming up, right? So, and you saw it even today when you had Direct Energy. Won a stage the other day. I didn't know they had a sprint. They're like in the lead out thing. I'm like, who are they leading out?
Mm-hmm. Somebody we haven't, not a name we're off.
Right. It's not to call anybody. I'll let Greg call him a second stringer, but you're just going to have these guys that say, wait a minute, there's 3 or 4 big sprinters out of this race. I'm going to go get up there and see what happens. And with that comes somebody that probably doesn't have the same experience. They haven't gone 75 kilometers an hour in a sprint and rubbed elbows and touched wheels, or maybe they have, but
we might see some new names, and we're like, who?
We might see some. But to me, you might see some. What he says here, scrappy sprints. I don't know about you, but I don't know about y'all, but I don't like the sound of a scrappy sprint.
No.
I like it when everybody stays in line and nobody touches.
You don't say, hey, it's scrappy commute to work today.
No,
you don't like that.
Yeah. How was your date with your wife last night? Oh, really scrappy.
It can't be good.
That can't be good.
I did laugh as I drove up to your house this morning to watch the tour.
Yeah. When we should have slept in.
You got? I was driving down your street, and there's a new island, a new piece of traffic furniture, as you call it, or road furniture. I laughed out loud to myself. I'm like, you hate it, and I go, he just got a new island right in front of his house.
But you know what? No, I like this one because if you know where we live in Austin, and between the hours of 4 and 6 p.m., it is the Autobahn. Like it's one of these cut-throughs and Waze, Waze, people at home listening, as much as I use and love Waze.
Waze is sending people through.
Waze has just, people bought a house on a quiet street like 5 years ago, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah. That's Waze. And so, anyways, our street's one of those, and they're trying to figure out how to, but yeah, we got a little, but you know what? Even ASO isn't dumb enough to put the Tour de France down our street.
Right. Well, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Any more thoughts on tomorrow's? We'll move on to some questions and comments.
I'm sleeping in. Okay. I'm going to sleep in a little more, and I'm going to ride a little longer.
Okay, good deal. Here's one from Andrew. Love the pod. How do teams handle the yellow jersey situation if their rider happens to get it first stage? Does each team travel with all the yellow gear?
That's funny.
I mean, you've seen Sky wearing the yellow helmets. Anyhow, or does the yellow have a range of sizes for everybody? He's kind of asking, what do you do in preparation for that?
Okay, so the jersey itself is issued by the Tour de France. So that jersey is, they sublimate the team's logos on there every day, and they give the leader a short sleeve jersey, a long sleeve jersey, a vest, a raincoat, all these things. but that comes directly from the race, and that's provided by their apparel sponsor, and it's got obviously their sponsors on it as well. And then, when a team chooses to go completely yellow bike, yellow helmets, yellow, underwear, whatever, that's their own thing. And yeah, I mean, you see, like in this
Yellow
race,
underwear is a bad thing, by the way.
yeah, but I'm sure it's happened. But
it's up to the teams how much they want to play that up.
Yeah, and you see Team Sky wearing yellow helmets. They're not wearing yellow helmets because Chris Froome is in yellow. They're wearing yellow helmets because they're leading the Team GC.
And it's probably good for their helmet sponsor to highlight those,
Yeah.
right?
By the way, what has happened with helmets? This is the ugliest thing. I mean, what?
They look.
I don't,
like
you know what? I'm going to save this for another day because I've already gotten riled up enough.
the style seems to be regressing a little bit. Less vents, more.
Yeah,
blocky.
they look like skateboard helmets.
And then the glasses have gotten bigger too.
Yeah.
Like
I've got a lot of comments about the helmet thing, about the uphill finish. I was surprised about that, and I was surprised that most of the comments we got were supportive, but there was more.
Lance, I've really enjoyed your insightful analysis during the first week. Perhaps you can comment on sleep requirements and those challenges during the tour. We have no idea what happens once you guys get back to the hotel. That's from Dennis Manzo in Montreal.
Right, sleep is tremendously important, and of course everybody's different. Some people need 7 hours. Some people need 9 or 10 hours. I'm a sleeper, so I always slept a lot. We also know that physical stress, mental stress can affect sleep. So there may be guys that just lay in bed at night nervous about the next day. Maybe they'll take a light sleeping pill, just something to get them to go to sleep, knowing that they have to sleep. The other interesting thing, and I think the conditions have improved in terms of the hotels, but back in the day, I sleep with earplugs every night, still to this day, because when I raced, I had to have earplugs. I was always hotels were inside of towns, and the trash guy or the dumpster or the construction truck would come early in the morning, or the scooters, the little European scooters would rage all night long when the kids got out of the disco, and they'd wake you up. So I started sleeping with earplugs from a very early time. And the other last thing I'll say is the temperature of the room is very important. And traditionally, cyclists have hated to have the AC on. The traditional European belief is that air conditioning gets you sick, right? So if the room's too cold, you get cold, or your sinuses get dried out, you get sick. So, as growing up racing, we always kept the windows open. So temperature, but you also know, if it's a hot night, the window's open. It's maybe low to mid 80s in the room. That's hot, and that affects sleep as well. And then you're sweating while you sleep, and that affects hydration. All of this stuff is hugely important. I actually bought into this idea that AC was bad for you, but I didn't buy into the idea that a fan wasn't bad for you. So I always had a fan. This one year's had to carry the fan around. There's these janky fans you'd buy at Target or something. Just put it there, just a little breeze in the room, just so I could sleep. But
there's got to be nights where you just toss and turn.
I never toss and turn. I'm a sleeper. I see a pillow, and
now you sit on it.
I do sit on it. We've been tall today, aren't I? But as soon as I see it, I'm like going down, and by the time my head hits it, Anna hates me.
Man,
She
you're
can't
so lucky.
sit. Yeah.
That's a great gift.
Thanks, bro.
Let's see. Dawn writes, does Lance make you sleep in the Airstream? If so, that's BS. Love the show. You guys are great.
That sounds like that's a question for you.
No, he doesn't. Everybody's been very hospitable and offered me bedrooms and everything. I meant
to tell you, our friend Laura Reynolds texted me the other day. She was
Okay.
up and asked me. She said, if JB doesn't want to sleep in the trailer in the Airstream, then we have an extra room. I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you that.
No, it's when we're back in Aspen next week, doing the last week of the tour, we'll have to do a little walkthrough because there is a full-on bedroom in the back, like a queen-size bed.
Yeah.
I love it. Same thing. I crank the fan and sleep like a baby.
There you go.
No, everybody.
Nobody needs to cry for Jeffrey Benedict.
I love it.
He's gonna be just fine.
Are you kidding?
I
Ask my
saw his
wife.
wife last night. I'm surprised you made it today.
And my daughter was with a friend for the night. It was good.
Oh, this is not okay.
All right. Hey, Tessa writes, how old are your twin girls now?
15.
While you're answering that question, you might as well break down all of them.
So, well, look at this. I'll just do it right here. Because I love this photo, right? So, you've got Olivia, who's 6. This little guy, Max, is 8. These twins right here are 15, Grace and Isabel. There's the old man, me, and my son, who looks like he's about 3 feet taller than me, is 17. So, 5 kids. Pretty awesome.
I know. I was so jealous that you have a kid old enough to pick you up at the airport. That's so great.
I know. Hicks was going to give me a ride yesterday, and I was like, wait a minute. I'm going to make Luke pick me up.
I love that.
And I expected shade. Like, I expect him to go, oh, man, come on. He was like, no problem.
That's great.
Yeah, it's good. It's great to be with him.
Let's see. Just a couple more quick comments. Ryan, we don't mind the language. My kids giggle when they hear it. Keep up the great podcast.
Yeah.
Not gonna. Do we have a tally on the swear jar?
I'm sure we'll get an email right after this.
Sydney, keep rocking this feed and podcast. Nothing in sports quite like this. Thank you very much for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you from all of us amateur weekend warrior roadies. By the way, I'm 65.
Wow.
That's cool.
That's very cool.
Are you going to be hammering it when you're 65?
Hell yeah, I am.
How long do you think you'll go?
How long will I live?
No, on a bike. Get out there getting after it.
No, I'll ride until the day I die.
Yeah?
Yep. 100%.
All right. Well, that wraps it up.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, technical finish. Look for some new scrappy names.
Yeah. Scrappy sprints.
There's We Do Gear if you want to go to WeDoSport.com. That's actually We Do Shop.
Both.
We Do Shop. WEDU.
Yeah.
Shop and check out some of the gear. Probably doing a reorder of the very, very popular Suffer shirts.
Yep. And then Thursday we're doing this particular podcast, just like we did the other day in Boulder at Vecchio's. We're going to take the whole similar setup and do it at my bike shop here in Austin at Melajani. So if you're in town and can come in, stop in, watch. Some.
It's a great day to watch too.
It's a tough day.
It's strategic. We're doing it there on a day that you'll want to watch.
We'll talk about that stage tomorrow. But if you guys do want to peek ahead, the finishing climb is not that hard. The climb before it, the Portobellas, is unbelievably hard. So
like mushroom Portobellas?
No. Is my accent that bad? Am I messing this? Jesus.
Look for the mushroom.
Yeah. All right.
And send this link to your friends. Post it online. Everybody sharing on social is great. It's you've helped rocket this thing into the top 10.
We flew through 2 million downloads.
Yeah. Stagespodcast.com has all the links to send it to your friends on if they want the link for iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud. It's crazy.
I figured we'd have to do this for like 20 years to get 2 million.
No. Everybody's spreading the love, sharing it. All those shares help us out a lot. We appreciate it.
Thank you for that. All right. See you tomorrow.